It's member-supported Hawaii Public Radio, All Things Considered. I'm Dave Lawrence, and tonight at the Blue Note, the venue is getting a visit from Johnny A. Now, this is a Boston-area guitar player who was here a few years ago with the Yardbirds, you may or may not recall, and he's back with a solo tour, and he's calling it Celebrating the British Songbook of the 60s, Just Me and My Guitars. And Johnny's got some experience, too, beyond British rock, having played guitar for Jay Giles Band frontman Peter Wolf, and he's done all kinds of other stuff, too. We'll hear as we welcome him to the show right now. Hey, Johnny, aloha, man. Thanks for doing this.
Hello, Dave. How are you doing? Thanks.
I'm very good, thank you. It's, as somebody from the New England area might say, it's wicked pissa. It's the balls.
Exactly.
Good to have you with us. And so for folks who are curious, who is this cat and what's he going to be doing, kind of in a nutshell, describe what's in store at these shows you're going to be doing.
Well, for the last 20 years, pretty much I've been doing a solo thing, but mostly with a band, either a trio or a quartet, and it's instrumental-based music. But this past year and a half, I just kind of wanted to do something that was a little bit more intimate, a little more personal, and I wanted to celebrate musical influences that really inspired me growing up. So I had the opportunity. Actually, it came through Joe Bonamassa. I was asked to do a second one of his cruises, but they asked me if I could do maybe a master class or a something like that, or a clinic, and I kind of decided to take the challenge up and see if I could put together an interesting one-man show. And that's what I did. I've been doing it for just about 2 years now, I guess a year and a half, 2 years, and I'm enjoying it. People seem to enjoy it. And I love the songs because they're all just songs that I grew up with. And it's not just guitar. It is electric guitar, but it's also I'm using looping technology. So for people that don't know what that is basically a little pedal on the floor that I'm able to press a button, which will capture what I'm playing in real time, and then I can play it back and overdub over it, manipulate it while it's playing back, and create arrangements on the fly. So it can be very dense at times in a good way from an arrangement standpoint. And it has a lot of dynamics because it can go from completely solo guitar pieces to pieces that are laden with loops and overdubs. And it's exciting. It's fun. And nothing's pre-recorded. So there's no save loops. I'm not playing to a CD or an iPod or anything. It's all done in real time.
Yeah, those are cool. I've seen a few other guitar players over the years do that. Those can be very trippy, kind of psychedelic things too. If they're done,
it can be.
Like you said, it becomes music you can do all by yourself. There, kind of like Stanley Jordan-esque or something.
Sure.
And how many guitars? Because it says in the thing, just me and my guitars with an S, Johnny. How many guitars will you be using during the course?
Well, I'll only travel with two.
Okay.
There's a lot more at home and in the vaults, but I use a couple different alternate tunings, so I will be traveling with just two on this run.
I get you. And it's you solo. I got the picture of it. And it's just going to be, all of the material is going to be British rock from the 1960s.
I go outside a little bit of the box, Dave, and it's because there might be certain songs that, like I said, were impactful for me as a kid. So a couple songs will go outside the British invasion 60s thing, but for the most part, that is definitely the crux of the material.
And that's cool because it's kind of a cool thing for you because you've kind of developed this thing over the years as an instrumental artist too, which I guess we haven't mentioned in the course of talking yet so far, and I'm getting the idea, and of course you'll correct me if I have it wrong at all. You're going to be doing all instrumental stuff, or are you going to be singing too?
No singing.
Yep, that's what I figured.
You don't want to hear me sing, Dave. And I don't think your audience would like to hear me sing.
That's funny. I like that.
But who knows? They could be glutton for punishment. I don't know.
You never know. People are open-minded. You might surprise them. How old were you, Johnny, when you first picked up the guitar, and what was it that drew you to the instrument?
Well, I actually started my musician life at about age 6 as a drummer. And I played, listening to the music of the day, whether it be the Safaris or Sandy Nelson, Gene Krupa. My family was kind of big band buffs, so I would hear all that Buddy Rich, Ed Shaughnessy, and Gene Krupa stuff. And then, February 1964 the Beatles, you know, and it was very heavily impacted my life and their music, and so much melody. And being a drummer, not being a melodic instrument, I just was hearing melody and wanted to produce melody, so I gravitated to the instrument of the day, which was a guitar. And that's kind of how it started. That's how my path on guitar started.
What was your first album that you bought as a kid, or that was given to you as a kid, or that you got into as a kid?
Well, that's two different phases. As a drummer, it might have been Sandy Nelson, Teen Beat, I think it was called. And there was also the Safari's Wipeout album.
Wow.
But after guitar, the first two albums I bought, the very first one, I think, was Little Too Scoop by the Beach Boys, and then Meet the Beatles.
Neat. That's cool. And I have to confess, I lived in Boston for 12 years. I went to Emerson, so I have a lot of love and deep connection for that city, even though I'm not from there. It played a big part of my life. So when I think back to your first concert, where was that in the hub of the universe, as people from New England like to call it?
Okay, the first major artist I probably saw, and I've seen a lot, but I think it might have been on Revere Beach at the ebb tide, and it was Chuck Berry on a Sunday matinee.
Wow.
And I might have been around 11 years old or 12. My mom took me or something. But there's been, you know, countless concerts. I saw the Beatles at Suffolk Downs in '66, you know, Hendrix in '68.
Where was Jimmy?
Everybody. Where was Hendrix?
Yeah.
He was at the Carousel Theater in Framingham, Massachusetts.
And I guess
it was the original experience. It was touring behind right after Axis Boulder's Love came out. It was August '68.
Only time you saw him, or did you see him again?
No, it's the only time I saw him. But it was a great story. I get to the show, and my mom had surprised me. She's a very big supporter in my life and music and stuff and my career. But she got tickets to the show, and we get there, and I never even heard of the Carousel Theater at the time because I was from the North Shore of Boston, and Framingham is west of Boston, you know, maybe 45 minutes from where I live. But in those days, you know, it was different than it is now. So we drive up, and it's basically a big outdoor tent. Like, you know, you're from the area, so you're probably familiar with the South Shore Music Circus and things like that. So it was like that. And we had 10th row tickets, which I was excited about, you know, see Jimi Hendrix, you know, 10 rows back. But when we got in there, my tickets were behind the amplifier stacks because he was playing in the round. And I wouldn't have seen anything. So during the break, there were three bands on the bill. One band that Jimmy had produced called Heir Apparent, and they were from Ireland. And Soft Machine was the second act, and then Jimi Hendrix Experience. And after the Heir Apparent, I just kind of got out of my seat, and I started talking to the guitar player. They were moving their own gear and everything. He was a really cool kid. And I was telling him I was such a big fan of Jimi Hendrix and my seat, I'm not going to be able to see anything. And this guy was really, really, I don't even know what his name was, but he was just such a cool guy. He walked me by all the security guards, and he walked me right into the orchestra pit. And right in front of Jimi Hendrix, my head was on the stage. I had my chin rested on the stage, and I was the only guy and only person in the orchestra pit. I was about 8 feet from him, right in front of him.
So it wasn't filled in with people sitting. It was a real special kind of way in front of the audience.
Yeah, nobody in the orchestra pit. Is where a band would usually, where an orchestra would play.
Right.
It was a play or something like that. But no, just some road cases, and covers and stuff like that. But nobody was sitting there but me.
Incredible. What a cool, and just cool how my mom definitely introduced me to the Beatles and T-Rex and CSN and Jerry Garcia and so many things. But that's neat that your mother had this profound impact taking you, because it was your mom who took you to Chuck Berry too, huh?
Took me to Chuck Berry, got us the tickets for the Beatles and she took me to see the Dave Clark 5 when I was a kid.
Wow.
And then allowed me to just, as a young guy, venture into Boston, on my own or with my friends. And I saw everybody in the day. I saw Spirit. I saw Moby Grape. I saw 10 Years After countless times. The Crazy World of Arthur Brown. I must have seen anybody that was pretty much anybody. I didn't see the Stones on their first kind of trip around through town. But I did finally get to see him on the Voodoo Lounge tour and meet those guys.
Wow, that's a ways later than the '60s part. How about Led Zeppelin?
No, I never saw Zeppelin, and I'll give you a funny story about Cream. My parents owned 2 gas stations, basically right down the street from where Emerson was, on Commonwealth Ave. Right, if you remember where the Howard Johnson's Hotel was there in Kenmore Square.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, well, we owned 2 Texaco gas stations there, right across the street from each other on Com Ave, and my stepfather would service this guy George Papadopoulos his car. Well, he had a venue that was on Com Ave called the Psychedelic Supermarket.
I remember that name.
And right, so he came in one day and he said, "Hey, I know your son's into music." He goes, "I have a couple tickets here. I got a band from England tonight called The Cream." Right? And so my stepfather said, "You want to go to this club tonight? They have a band called The Cream." And I never heard of them. It was their second show in the United States.
Wow.
And I said, "Nah, I never heard of him." And I didn't go to the show. He paid him $1,700 that night. But imagine that, giving up tickets to see and probably meeting Eric Clapton on his first tour with Cream.
Unreal. That is,
I know.
That is a, well, we all have stuff like that, but that's certainly
a kick. Yeah, that's a kick myself in the butt, episode for sure.
Yeah, no, it is. It is. I remember in 1995, Stevie Wonder played at the Wang Center, and I was just in like grad school and struggling to pay my bills, and I couldn't get comped in, so I was like, I don't think I'm gonna go. I don't have the money. I kicked myself for a very long time until I finally saw him. So I remember, it brings to mind my own little things like that. So for sure.
Yeah, but I was very, very fortunate. I got to see a lot of, I think, groundbreaking artists in their prime in the day, and I was really lucky.
The old Tea Party. Who'd you see in the old Tea Party?
Oh, I saw. Geez. So you were talking about Johnny Winter, so I saw Johnny Edgar. I saw Spirit there. I believe I saw The Who there. Alvin Lee, for sure, 10 years after.
How about Paul's Mall Jazz Workshop stuff?
I went there, yeah. Matter of fact, I played Paul's Mall with a band I had in Boston called The Streets. And if you remember Paul's Mall and the Jazz Workshop, it was in one building. It was, the impresario there was Freddie Taylor, who
just
recently passed away. Yeah. But I was playing the Paul's Mall, the front room, and Martin Mull was playing the Jazz Workshop, down the hall in the same building. And they had to come to us. We had to stagger our shows because my band was so damn loud that nobody could hear Martin Mull telling his jokes.
That is funny. And those are the great old days there in town. And I guess that's sort of how you must have crossed paths. Well, thinking about this gig you're doing and the last time you were in town, and you mentioned we were talking about the British missing the cream and stuff. You did the Yardbirds when they were here in 2016. How'd you link up with those dudes eventually?
Well, interestingly enough, the Beatles, my favorite all-time band, and growing up, and they actually still are. They've maintained that position for me. And growing up, my second favorite band was the Yardbirds, and was always, especially the Jeff Beck era, the 65, 66 era. And
you see them back then?
No, I never saw them back then, unfortunately. Okay. They didn't do a lot of touring. I know they played the area. They played Connecticut. They played, a few places. I'm not sure if they ever played Boston in the day, to be honest with you. But my first two solo albums, Sometime Tuesday Morning and Get Inside, were released on Steve Vai's label, Favored Nations. And he also put out a record for the Yardbirds in 2004. And my Get Inside album came out in 2004. So we were label mates for a while. They happened to be coming through Boston, and they were playing the original House of Blues, the small one, which was the very first one.
Little church in Cambridge.
It was basically a small little place on a side street. It only held 210 people. And I went to the show, introduced myself. They asked me to sit in, and it was great. It was like I had played with them forever. And then I got a call from the label that week and asked me if I could go down to B.B. King's in Manhattan and sit in with them again, which I did. And then I got a call, in 2000, whenever that was, 15 or something, 2014 originally, about doing a tour. And I had already had a tour booked, and I couldn't do it. and Jim McCarty had a medical thing, and the tour got canceled anyway. The next year, when they were rebooking, I got a call again, and I was available, and I basically worked with them, 15, 16, 17, and 18. Yeah, just about 4 years of touring.
What's a fun when you think of getting to do that with the legendary Jim McCarty? He's been on the show with us a few times, and of course Chris Drea, who has unfortunately, I guess, had a stroke or something, and doesn't.
Right, he hasn't been performing with them, I think, since 2012.
Yeah, he was on with us in 2011. So when you think of your years of getting to work under the name of the legendary Yardbirds, and that was one of the loudest shows, if not the loudest, most rocking show ever that I've seen at the Blue Note. But when you think of all the different places you've been with that band that really delivered it, what's a fun memory that just makes you smile, or maybe somebody interesting showed up to see you?
Well, I think going with them to Tokyo was kind of cool, and that was on the same run. We had done
Hawaii.
4 nights. Why? I don't know. I just I love Japan. I love playing Japan, the culture, the audience, a real reverence for artists they have. So it's just always a special. I've been there, I think, 6 or 7 times now, and it's always a special experience. So we went over with the Yardbirds. We did 8 shows, the Cotton Club, and kind of then jetted down to and we did the 6 shows in Honolulu. So that was a great time.
Any England dates with them?
I did. I did 2. I did 2 shows in the UK with them. I believe I did the O2, not the arena, but one of the
that club.
Clubs or something.
The one,
the club.
The one in London that has like a little club next to it.
I believe so. And then we did the End of the Bridge series too, and that was a cool club. And so I think I did 2 or 3 shows with them in the UK.
And you have another cat on your thinking about being around the Boston scene and those interesting stories of especially playing so loud over at Fred Taylor's place. They had to get you to quiet down. When you think about hooking up with Peter Wolf, who is the frontman of the Giles Band, major music luminary in the Boston area, and has been around a long time, gotten to work with lots of different people himself. How'd you first get that gig?
I first met Peter way back when he was putting together the Come As You Are band tour for that solo album, Come As You Are. And a good buddy of mine, rest in peace, Jeff Golub, was on that record. And you're probably familiar with Jeff. He played with Rod Stewart. He played with Billy Squier. He had a very, very vibrant, smooth jazz career with a band he had put together called Avenue Blue. And he passed away about 5 or 6 years ago, I think. And Peter was putting together a band for that tour. I think he had Doug Wimbish in it, and Bobby Chenard was playing drums, and Jeff Golub was on guitar, and Peter wanted another guitar player. So Jeff and I were friends, and Jeff brought Peter to see me one night, and he liked my playing, but he just thought that Jeff and I were two similar guitarists, which we were. We played fairly similar. And so he passed on me, and then I got a call to go in and record an acoustic single for a WBCN Christmas record with Peter. And so I did that. And then, strangely enough, when I was musical director for Bobby Whitlock of Derek and the Dominoes, we were doing something live on MBR, I think, in Boston radio there, college radio, and we were broadcasting live, and it was me and Bobby Whitlock and my good buddy Stu Kimball, who was just with Bob Dylan for the last 15 years. And we were performing live, and I got a call after that performance from Peter wanting to get together, and the rest was that. We put this band together. We did the Long Line album. I played with him for about musical director and played with him for about 8-9 years, I guess.
What's a crazy memory or a cool, because Peter rubbed shoulders with all these cats like the Stones and all this different stuff. He had a lot of different, like I was alluding to, there were a lot of cats who really he was able to be close to. What's a fun memory that sticks out? Because I know you've been on the stage with some major cats over the years.
Well, okay, you brought up the Stones. So there's 2 Stone stories. One was, first Stone I met was, we were playing this little kind of boutique-y place in the Hamptons called Stephen Talk House, which in Montauk, which is a really ritzy place, and high-end talent plays there, but it was would hold 100 people. So it was like, was kind of like a she place to be, you know. And we were at soundcheck loading in, and Jan Wenner, the guy that, you know, the head of Rolling Stone magazine,
Yep.
came there and talking to Peter because they're friends. And he says, yeah, Mick's in town. We're going to try to bring him back to the show and blah, 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 blah. And so we do the show, and it's this small little place. It's literally like when you put on the stage lights, it lights up the whole room type of place, you know. So I'm sitting there, and at the time I used to wear these dark sunglasses on stage. So, you know, when there's no lights on, you can't see anything. And we're doing the first song of the show, which was 99 Worlds from his, I forget the name of that record. But anyway, we're doing that song, and the solo comes. I go to the lip of the stage, and the stage is only about 10 feet deep. And the spotlight comes on me, and as I look down at my guitar, right in front of me is Mick Jagger. looking at me, and it threw me at first because it's like, you know, one of those faces that you've seen for 45 years, but you couldn't place him. So I'm like, I'm trying to play this solo, and I'm looking at this guy and saying, this guy looks really familiar. And it was Mick Jagger. So, and that was great. We met him, and he was very cordial. He was really a nice guy. And then on the Voodoo Lounge tour, you know, Peter had taken us to the tour, and he says to me, you know, you want to meet Keith? I said, well, who doesn't want to meet Keith, right? So we go to his trailer in back. This was at the Tweeter Center. And we go to the trailer. Pete knocks on the door, and it's just like the movies. It's just like, you know, Pirates of the Caribbean or something. You know, he flails open the door, and flails open the door. He's got this bright red kind of blousey shirt on, and he goes, "Hey, Peter!" And he says, "I wanted to bring by my guitar player Johnny A to meet you." And Keith is like, "Hey, mate, any mate of Pete's is a mate of mine. Come on in." That was a funny story.
That's a great one.
But, yeah, those are my two Rolling Stone stories,
and they're very good ones, man. And that's actually a great one to use on the radio too with this bit, because it's such a great thing coming to town doing a British. Because you're gonna have some Stones in the set, I imagine, yeah.
I do. I'm not going to give away the song.
No, don't.
I like to surprise.
Yeah. Keep it as
there's a little bit of everybody, and I think if people are a fan of that music, I think, you know, there'll be a lot of light bulb moments when they hear the songs, because you're obviously hearing them in a different format. You're not hearing vocals. You're hearing instrumental, and you can see the inquisitive looks in people's eyes, and they think they know the song, and all of a sudden it clicks in, you know?
Kind of like you going, I've seen that face. I know who that
is. Exactly, Dave.
It's Johnny A., and he's been a very fun guest, and bringing his good sense of humor and his great storytelling and obviously fantastic guitar playing to the Blue Note, where he returns with his British Songbook of the 60s celebration that he's got, Just Me and My Guitars. He was in that room with the Yardbirds. You may or may not have seen him there, but he's back there. And tonight doing the shows at the Blue Note, 6:30 and 9. Thrilled to have you as a guest. I really appreciate it, and I hope you had a wicked pissa balls of a time here on the show.
Dude, it was awesome. Yeah, I really appreciate the support.
Yeah, maybe you bring me a Dell's lemonade and a Buzzy's roast beef if you can.
Oh, Buzzy's is gone, but yeah.
You like Dell's lemonade though, yeah? You know what that is?
Oh yeah.
I wish we could get them. When I first moved here, they had a little cart that sold that in Waikiki. I couldn't believe it, but then they got rid of it after a year. I've missed it ever since. Because I grew up in Philly, so for me that Dell's lemonade was just like, I love that real water ice.
Really, I remember playing the Tower Theater there when I was on tour with Aerosmith. That was a great place.
Are you guys open for Aerosmith, or you didn't?
Yeah, I did a tour. I did a tour with Aerosmith. My band, The Streets, back in 78, 79.
Oh wow!
They were doing theaters, yeah.
Wow! So they were doing. As after the Draw the Line tour, they were doing that.
Yeah, it was kind of like fun. It was all the 3,000, 3,500 seat venues. It was great.
Yeah,
there was the Music Hall in Boston. It was the Tower Theater. It was I forget where it was in Ohio. We played with them. Detroit Masonic Temple.
Right.
It was great.
Yeah, that's a cool thing. I mean, it's good, nice on the resume just to have gotten it done. And when you're in Philly, it's always a lot of good food there too. That's where I grew up.
Sure is. Hey, everybody, it's Johnny A. And I need you to make a pledge right now, and maybe you heard me here, on member-supported Hawaii Public Radio. And there's no better way to spend the afternoon either. And I had a wicked piss of time with my buddy Dave Lawrence. And if you remember that, you need to join and become a member right now. Don't hesitate. Here's how, and thanks a lot. Mahalo.
That's cool. That's awesome. Good, nice touch. All right, brother. High fives. If I can, I'll make it down there and say hi at the thing. But you very animated and a lot of fun, and people will enjoy that. You're a great storyteller. I love all that stuff. It's fun stuff.
All right, kid. I hope I see you then.
God bless you, Johnny. Travel safe.
All right, brother.